fat you consume, the leaner you become. Carnivores are sane and sexy, and meat as a medicine. So I'm Dr. Dina Churchill, innovator of women's health and wellness, and I'm here today to share with you some tips of how I survive and thrive in this toxic world. Because the information on nutrition keeps changing, so as I learn new things, I'm loving to share it with you. Today's video was inspired by an interview that I'd seen with Dr. Campbell McBride, with Dr. Joe Mercola. And thank you to Corey Hutter for sending it to me. So thank you to Corey too. I'm going to post links on this of the books and videos that have kind of inspired this video, so you can go through at the end. And if you have any questions, hi Georgianne, Ashley, Brent, Andrea. Nice to see you. If you have any questions, you can post them and I'll take a look at them intermittently throughout the video. But really, Natasha Campbell McBride, she's brilliant. She's written a book called GAPS, which is the Gut and Psychological Syndrome. Now, she's a Russian neurologist, but has a child that has autism. So you can see her interest in the gut and psychology was personally motivated. But not only Natasha Campbell McBride, I mean, there's other researchers, Hippocrates, for example, said all diseases begin in the gut. And then there's the French psychiatrist, Pinet, that looked at schizophrenic patients. And in taking schizophrenic patients off carbohydrates for 30 days, all their schizophrenic symptoms improved. And then we have a current researcher, and her name is Dr. Georgia Eddy, E-D-E, and she looks at, again, mental illness. And she says, forget the childhood trauma, and let's not medicate right away. Let's go ahead and look at diet as a way of balancing your brain. Not just her, there's other researchers too, like let's see, Dr.Barry Groves and Natasha McBride. And of course, there's William Davis, who's the wheat belly guy. So all these, researchers and doctors are going against the grain, no pun intended, and really giving us the truths about health and nutrition. On the flip side of that, we have the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistic Manual for Mental Disorders. It's kind of like the medical Bible, if you will, where they will diagnose a medical illness and then they will have a prescription or something to give you. So on the other side, this DSM-5 has been revised now to include things like hoarding, anxiety about your health. So I'd fit into that one for sure. Binge eating, sometimes there. Internet addiction. So they've expanded the parameters that we now all could have a mental disorder and a medication for it. So on one side, we have that uninspired package of the new DSM-5. And on the other side, we see these brilliant researchers really putting their heart and soul into this research. So the links that I'm going to share with you, and the books and the videos, I guarantee you won't find on the 5 o'clock news. So do take a minute to go through. Some of the ideas I'm going to be presenting are in conflict to what you already know and believe about your health. So know that, I've researched and read a lot in order to get to this place. So where do I want to start? Let's start with the basic cell, the enterocyte. So in Dr. Campbell McBride's book called GAPS, she has a great picture of this. I don't have my book with me, but it's a cell, a picture of a cell, and they have like little villi coming out of their head. So the villi stick into the inside of the lumen, so the intestines, and it absorbs nutrients, brings it through the cell and out into the blood. So in order to keep this little cell healthy and happy, what we need is good bacteria to break down the food in the digestive system. And then we need to make sure we're feeding our body to keep that cell healthy so it can bring the nutrients into the blood. So what often happens when this cell is damaged is that we have problems with absorption, and that leads to a lot of other inflammations and inflammatory diseases. But first, before we talk about how to kind of maintain that good bacteria, that microbiome or probiotics, these are words you might have heard, let's talk about how you destroy it. So you can destroy it by medications. So birth control, for example, antibiotics, antidepressant medication, antibiotic, anti means against, biotic life. So if you have an infection, not only does it wipe out the bad bacteria. It wipes out all your good bacteria so it can destroy it. So these are things that can destroy the natural bacteria. And then we have, so we want to be filtering our water, for example, and not eating organic foods, because another important chemical that destroys our natural bacteria is something called glyphosate. Anyone know what glyphosate is? Okay, glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup. It's used as a herbicide, so to kill weeds, but it's also used to spray over our farmland and our trees as a herb or weed killer. But it's poisonous. It was initially patented as an antibiotic, so it not only kind of kills the bacteria via the shikimate pathway in our gut, it also kills our soil bacteria and our ocean bacteria. So this glyphosate is dangerous. It's a dangerous chemical, and we know that because of a court case that I'll talk about in just a second. But they're spraying this over our farmland. They're putting it in vaccines. If you look at vaccines and some of our processed food, they have this glyphosate. So if you haven't heard of it before, you have to research it. I'll post some links down here. It's serious because this MIT scientist who looks at glyphosate in the environment, she's been studying it over a period of 20 years and sees the increase. She said, if we don't change this environment of glyphosate, in the year 2025, 50% of baby boys born will be autistic. So we really need to investigate this. This is a serious issue, glyphosate. And I was going to tell you about the court case. So recently, there's been a couple in California who've been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and they've sued Bayer Monsanto, which is the big company. It not only makes Roundup, it makes a lot of our pharmaceuticals and our vaccines, but they sued Bayer Monsanto for $2 billion. And they won. They won. So the courts are saying, yes, we know this chemical is causing cancers and causing disease, $2 billion. So this sets a precedent. This is kind of encouraging to know at least the word's getting out there. But the problem right now is our government agencies, health departments, pesticide departments, are saying this chemical is safe. I know because I've wrote them. And we know the courts are now seeing that it's worth, a $2 billion settlement. So we, as public, now that we know about it, we need to help educate. We need to help bring those two together and help educate our governments. And, there's big companies like Nova Scotia Power that are spraying this glyphosate over our forests here in Nova Scotia. And that is a water-soluble poison. It goes down and it gets into our water supply. So this glyphosate is a big deal. It's a big chemical, and we need to know more about it. We need to talk about it. We need to share it. We need to protest, and we need to kind of make sure that our government agencies are aware of what's happening in our environment, because it's killing off our natural bacteria that's causing disease, because our immune system, again, is found in our gut. And I'm going to explain that in just a second. But these bacteria in our gut, these little probiotics, are also great at capturing heavy metals and poisons in the environment. So they capture them and they pull them out of our system. Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride talked about a study where they have two groups of rats. One group of rats didn't have antibiotics and one group had antibiotics. And they gave both rats mercury, which you'll find in your flu vaccine. It'll be 250 times more than what the environment allows. But they gave these rats mercury, and the rats that had, and then they killed them. Fun. And they did a postmortem study, and the rats that didn't have the antibiotics, the healthy rats, only had 1% of mercury in their brain and in their blood. But the rats that didn't have a good digestive system, so because their antibiotics had killed out all the microbes, had 95% of the mercury that they'd injected and given to the rat in the rat's body. That they fed them the mercury, and that 95% was in their body. So really, this microbiome is not only important for breaking down our foods, it's helpful for detoxing heavy metals in our body. Any questions so far? Rhonda Newcomb, may also saying there's absolutely no link between oh, really? Many are saying there's no link between glyphosate and vaccine. So what you could do is just Google the ingredients, and I'll post a link, or Rhonda, if you know, at the Canadian Vaccine link site, you can look at the ingredients in the vaccines, and you can see which ones have glyphosate. And then you could look at Andrew Wakefield's research that shows the connection there. So I'll post some links after, but I'm going to just go back to my presentation because I'll forget where I was. But thank you, Rhonda, for that, and I'll come back to it. So we're looking at ways to help our bacteria. So let me show you what I do, okay? So I use this product. This is called Restore, and this was formulated by a triple board certified doctor named Dr.Zach. It's excellent. I take this every day. This helps seal the tight junctions in your gut. So again, Natasha Kimball McBride talks about sealing and then healing. So we need to restore the integrity of the gut lining. This is a great product to do it with. Again, I don't get any kickbacks from these products. This is just what I take personally, I promise. And then I do know this lady, but I don't get kickbacks for her products. But this is a local lady, Linda Pierce, has developed this cultured coconut. So this is a probiotic. It's in a liquid form. And I can't remember, I don't know if Linda's on here. Rhonda, do you know how many trillion bacteria is in here? In the latest product she had referenced, I think there was 3 trillion bacteria, 50 different strands. So I take a tablespoonful of this every day. So this is like natural bacteria, putting it back into your system. But if your gut lining is not healed, if you've damaged your gut lining, this won't stay in your system, right? It'll keep coming out. So you need to heal and seal the gut lining. This is another product I use, and I buy this at Costco because it comes in a 6-pack. But this is called kombucha, and it's a fermented tea. So another way, it's delicious. I like the ginger, it's my favorite. And then, of course, another way of getting good bacteria probiotics into your system and supporting your microbiome is fermented foods. So you can ferment foods yourself. In fact, we'd recommend it. Natasha McBride, in her book, Gaps, shows you how to ferment, how to make yogurt at home, how to ferment your own foods. It's just cabbage and salt and water. It's really easy. But again, I direct you back to her book. So those are some of the products I use. So now let's go into our second bit. So now we have our microbes that are going to help us digest our food. Now we need to make sure our enterocyte, our cells, are healthy. The best way to keep your cells healthy is with animal products and animal fat. Because animal protein has the perfect balance of amino acids for protein chain to make protein and heal our body. It has essential fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. So we need animal fat in particular and animal protein. Now, I know that's going to be shocking for some of you who are vegans or vegetarian. I mean, I swayed towards vegetarian myself. So when I heard all these things for the first time, I was sort of shocked. Really? I've got to eat more meat? And plants are cleansers and not useful? And meat is what feeds your body? I mean, it was kind of a mind tease for me. And then I looked at Dr.Barry Grove's interview, and he shows the anatomy of our digestive system. So as carnivores, meat eaters, we have only one gut. So a cow, for example, has a couple of different guts, and they can recycle the food and utilize herbs and change them to short chain fatty acids that they can use as energy. But our guts, our stomach doesn't have any bacteria, well, in a healthy stomach anyway. And we have pepsin and hydrochloric acid. Those things in our stomach are specific for animals, for breaking down animal protein. So we are designed as meat eaters. Again, it was hard for me to kind of see that because I was swaying again more towards veganism. But vegetarianism started really as a byproduct of Western religion, because monks in the monastery were starting to get frisky with each other. So they developed a vegetarian diet because they felt and seen that their sexual energies would be depleted with a vegetarian diet. Now we know this now in science because our hormones, our sex hormones, are made up of fats. So fats are in our animal proteins, right? Cholesterol. So this is a myth, right? Cholesterol is actually good for you. You need to eat cholesterol. So our cholesterol lowering drugs like statin drugs are giving us dementia and neurodegenerative disorders. Our brain is 25% fat. Our covering around our nerve sheaths, the myelin sheath, is made up of fat. Our sex hormones, our hormones that control our menses, our fertility, hormones that control our appetite. I mean, hormones are made up of fat. So if you're depriving your body of fat, you're not regulating properly. You're losing your brain. So over a period of 5 years, it shows vegetarians lose 5% of their brain. So fats are really important. They're a source of energy for us. So we utilize, most of our body parts utilize fat as an energy. So our brain uses glucose and our red blood cells use glucose, but everything else uses fat as an energy source. So that's why you can be lean and why you're eating fat, because you're utilizing everything that you're eating. Make sense? Questions? Something, anything? Let's just me take the vaccine inserts. Yeah, read the vaccine inserts. Thanks. That's good. Thank you. Gobbling up those antibiotics described. Yeah, thanks, Robert. Yeah, so the against biotic life, it wipes out all your natural flora. And again, even if you're not taking antibiotics, if you're living in this world right now and we have glyphosate here, it's a natural planetary antibiotic, you are getting it. I guarantee you. So you really need to be doing this stuff, even if you're not taking any medications. I haven't taken medications in 30 years and I still do all this stuff. Plant-based whole food diet, not good for the brain. Yes, thanks, Wanda. That's exactly it. A plant-based whole food diet that I promoted for many years and did for myself is really not good for your brain. You need DHA, you need EPA, which are essential fatty acids. Fish is a great source. You can also get it from eggs and meat in a lower amount, but fish is the best source of that. We really need that for good brain health. So thank you for spelling that out. That's great. So the monks got frisky, and that's where they started vegetarianism. And then we get, Dr. John Kellogg. And he was a doctor in the 18th century who worked in sanatoriums for people that had TB. So he wanted his inmates at the sanatorium to have less sexual desires and energy, so they're not fraternizing with each other, and wanted to make sure the sexual organs were void of decongestion, I think is how he worded it in his article. So he started feeding, John Kellogg, his inmates at the sanatorium a high carbohydrate diet and more and less animal protein, because it suppressed their sexual desires. So it's so amazing. If you want to be, asexual, be vegetarian. But these two guys that really influenced our whole system, did so because they were trying to decrease, our sexual desires, which is kind of it's a representation of our health and our vitality and evolution of our species and propagation of our species. It's sort of that was where vegetarianism came from. So John Kellogg, the doctor, and his brother Bill developed, you guessed it, cornflakes. So you start your day with some good carbohydrates to increase inflammation in your body. So why does it increase inflammation? Why does carbohydrates increase inflammation? It converts to sugar. So even fruits and some starchy vegetables will convert to sugar and will increase inflammation. Why? Because those little cells are picking up, right, the sugar, and it gets stored into your liver. Some of these cells are destroying these little villi, and our liver then holds this glucose that can't be used as an energy source. So inflammation can come in the way of diabetes, right? Inflammation in the arteries. So intermittent fasting, low carbohydrate diet. Some researchers like Jason Fung says you can actually reverse type 2 diabetes just by changing your diet. Other conditions can be, gut issues, so you're not absorbing properly, but it can be gluten sensitivities. We have a whole rise now, right, of gluten sensitivities. It could be celiac disease. It could be food allergies, inflammation in the joints, or arthritis, inflammatory arthritis, inflammation in the skin, eczemas and dermatitis, inflammation in the brain, right? The autism and the learning disabilities, and Natasha Kimball McBride is a great resource for that. And she has an autistic son, and she's a neurologist. She's done a lot of research on this. So, don't believe me. I'm just the messenger. Go look at the research yourself. But inflammation in your body, and then if you have chronic inflammation over a longer period, it leads to things like cancers. So where the body has just taxed so much, has so many toxins that it can't really fight back, and it has no balancing mechanism to get rid of those rogue cancer cells, and it overtakes your body. So this is what we're seeing now, this rise in cancers. 1 in every 2, 1 in every 3 people have cancer. Why? It's our environment. It's these chemicals we're putting in our environment. So we need to take a stand on it. We have to educate ourselves, because big pharma is not going to educate us. They have their values of profit, not public health. So the onus is on you really to research this for yourself. Any other questions? Let's see. Amen. Cholesterol is good. Yes. So we have your bacon and eggs. Speaking about that. Okay. So let me show you what I have for breakfast. I don't have cornflakes anymore, but I do eat raw eggs, but I like them in an eggnog. So I made this up. I put it in my shaker, in my kind of protein shaker, and it's what I have every morning. And I usually eat like a big meal, like 4 or 5 o'clock. And then I don't usually eat until maybe 11:30 the next day. I go to yoga in the morning and do my yoga routine and then eat. So I had that whole period of intermittent fasting that gives your body a chance to detox, right? If you're not continually stuffing food in there, then the energy can go to your body's healing. So intermittent fasting is really important. So then I come back and I have my eggnog, which is made up of, let me show you. So I buy these eggs at Costco, okay, organic eggs. So I usually have 2 eggs and coconut milk. And then I have Himalayan rock salt. So you either have to have Himalayan rock salt or Celtic salt, because this puts 84 trace minerals back into your body, and it helps your body hold and retain water, where other salt kind of dehydrates you. This actually, we need healthy salt. So I put about 2 eggs, I don't know, maybe 10 ounces of the coconut, and maybe half a teaspoon of this. I don't really have a recipe, so I know Gail asked me for a recipe. I was like, I don't know, Gail, just do it to your taste. Maybe a teaspoonful of vanilla, and then lots of cinnamon. I love cinnamon, and it helps balance blood sugar too. So that is what I have in the morning in my eggnog shake. So I got my eggs, non-dairy coconut. And then this is what I bought at the market today was some back bacon with the fat on it. So now I'm eating fat. I know for years you're like, oh, don't eat the fat, don't eat the skin on the chicken. But that's where you're getting good energy from, right? So this is my English bacon. So I keep this in the fridge. So I cook it. This is what my Aunt Lottie told me. Cook the bacon on a parchment paper and then put it in the oven, like on a cookie sheet, so you don't have like the fat flying around your kitchen. And then I cook up like the whole pound, and then I eat some, and then I just keep it in the fridge. So when I come back from yoga, I'll have my eggnog, eggs and bacon, right? So thanks, Robert, for that. Yeah, so the other product that I like to use, I'm just going to put a plug in here for David, David Wolf. Is it David Wolf? Avocado guy. Someone just his name escapes me right now. But this is a carbon 60. So this is a fullerene compound, and it's like a high potent activated charcoal. It surrounds toxins and it brings it out of your body. So this is something else I do on a regular basis. I do this every morning. David Wolf, you can look at that, carbon 60. And it's a great way to kind of detox your body. This, oh, I haven't even opened it yet. It's my special package I'm sharing with you. Some people are opening books that they write. I'm opening a sirloin tip steak that I bought at the market today. So that's my excitement on a full moon, is buying meat. So here it is. Here's the steak. So see how I tried to buy fatty cut. So I will eat that fat when I cook it, and I'll probably grill it. And again, I'm eating the fat, where years I didn't even eat meat. Like the whole idea of eating meat and eating animals, it's like it was a hard jump for me. But organ meats are also, I like to buy the beef liver at the market, the grass-fed beef liver, and like chicken hearts and things, and I can put it in my slow cooker. And Dr. Natasha Kimmel McBride talks about this. She gives recipes in her book for bone broths and meat stocks and things where you can use chicken necks and hearts and things to, again, get the goodness from the meat and the meat protein and the type 2 denatured protein from the meat. So the other thing I want to mention is processed foods. Oh my gosh. So processed foods, this is what Gail talked about with me this morning. Processed foods are horrible. Why? Because they have so many additives. Processed foods have so many addictive substances in it. It's really why you can't stop eating them, right? They have MSG, it has sugar. Sugar lights up your brain on an MRI more than cocaine. Has sugar. So even things like ketchup have like so much sugar in them, and other condiments and anything has. And then, okay, this is the other thing. The glyphosate as a food additive, that poison that they're putting on our plants that are using a herbicide that's the active ingredient in Roundup, they're also putting it into our foods, because the foods that have the highest concentration of glyphosate, anyone know? What foods have the highest concentration of glyphosate? Baby food. So baby cereals and things that you give kids like Cheerios and Cheekios and I don't know, Doritos and those type of things. Anything in a bag like that often has glyphosate in it. So actually the whole movement against Monsanto, March Against Monsanto, you can Google it, it's here on Facebook, was started by a mother. Tammy Canal, I think her name was. And she was a mother whose child was sick. So she started investigating while the child was sick, why the child was having learning difficulties and things. And it was coming from the food, from the glyphosate in the food. So she was the one, she just wanted to have a few followers to get her message out there. She has now millions of people from around the world marching against Monsanto, because she wanted to learn and she wanted to do what was best for her kids and she wanted to share it with other people. So, it's inspiring really to have one woman be concerned about her child and want to kind of look past what the establishment says is safe and understand what's safe for herself and create a movement of like millions of people. Touches my heart. So I don't know how I got that. Processed foods, the glyphosate, it's a big deal. Vaccines are a big deal. They're going to tell you vaccines are safe, but the people that are telling you safe are making money from them. I'm just saying, investigate it yourself. At least look at the product insert. Really, I don't have anything to gain or lose by telling you to do that, right? It's just, I think it's a wise thing for parents to do. I mean, if you're looking at the ingredients of what you're putting in the baby cereal, you should be looking at the ingredients of what you're injecting into their little bodies, because 68 vaccines by the time child is 16 years old really doesn't make a lot of sense to me with everything I've researched and the heavy metals and chemicals and glyphosate. I don't know why I always get pulled back to vaccines. It wasn't even a big question. So let me go back to some questions before I'll take a little break. Just let me make sure I've got everything that I want to talk about. Miss Dr. Kellogg, you'd be a good one for you to research. I mean, today is a full moon, right? Scorpio moon. We're going to dig into the details. Sun's in Taurus, which is the earth. So it's a great day to talk about the earth and how to protect ourselves and how to, save our planet. And I talked about the processed foods. Okay, let's see about some questions. Robert has a link there, the People's Chemist. I don't know a lot about that, Robert, but I'll look into it. If cholesterol was good, people wouldn't get heart attacks. Just saying, oh yeah, Gabriel. No, that's the old myth, okay? That was the diet heart hypothesis that was developed in 40s to 60s, but that's been dismissed. Actually, sugar causes heart disease. It's sugar that causes the inflammation, not the fat. And in fact, Dr. Natasha McBride has written a book about that, because she says, okay, so as soon as I start recommending fatty meats to people, first thing comes up is, oh, I'm going to get a heart attack. So she wrote a book. This is what she titled her book. Put your heart in your mouth. Put your heart in your mouth. So if you want a resource on that, Gabriel, Natasha McBride, Put Your Heart in Your Mouth. A big difference between grass-fed stuff you buy at the local grocery store. Okay. So this is my feeling, Rhonda. I try to eat grass-fed, but if you have a big family or you're a student or you're on a low income, you may not be able to afford to eat grass-fed beef. Any beef is better than carbohydrates. So if you have to make a choice for a big family, low income, I mean, Costco has big pieces of meat. So I did buy from Costco some, and you don't want to get like the lean meats. Try to get the fatty meats. Again, it's totally different than what we've been taught, but try to get the meats that have the fat in them, and even ground beef and things like that. So best to have grass-fed animals that are not fed hormones, but if you're not in a position where you can get that, if you have access to it, then just like I said, some meat is better than no meat, and no carbohydrates though, or low carbohydrates. Corn, yeah, the most genetically modified food is corn. In fact, I have a picture somewhere, I might be able to find it, that shows rats that are given corn, genetically modified corn, have these big tumors all over their body. So it's corn's really not that good. And this glyphosate that I'm talking about, these genetically modified chemicals, they have been banned in 38 European countries. So it's not like it's, rocket science. Many other countries have seen the harmful effects of this and have banned them. In Canada and the US, they're not even allowing us to label when there's the poison in the food or in the vaccine. I mean, those vaccines should have listed all the poisons that are in them. And then the mom can choose, do I want to put mercury in my child? Do I want to put glyphosate? What is it? They start researching it. So really, the onus now is on us as consumers in our healthcare and in our food industry to make sure we know what's in it and what to avoid. So yeah, corn, that was a long spiel about corn. Don't eat anything ending in O's. What do you mean? Gabriel, maybe you can expand on that for us. Good stuff, great information. Thank you, Robert. Vaxxed on YouTube. Yeah, there's lots of vaccine. So I have to tell you this. No, maybe I won't bring it in. Hi, Jacob. Rhonda, cows fed with grain sprayed with glyphosate. Yeah, it's a concern. And I thought about that too, right? Because I did read some of the research that said the poisons can be concentrated then in the livestock, but apparently it's not. And I don't have a resource for it, but the researchers that I've been studying with don't seem to see that as the biggest concern as the glyphosate that's sucked directly up into the plant. So it's almost like the animal's body can process it and probably pulls out some of the toxins, Rhonda. But the plants, like I said, it's a water-soluble poison. So it goes into the ground, sucked up into the plant. We eat the plant. Kills all our bacteria. Vegetarian diet being better for the environment. Yeah, thanks. That's another big one, Georgianne. But what they're doing, that's what I thought too. But what they're doing now is raping and pillaging the land. They're putting in more of these, big commercial farms, and then they're spraying it with glyphosate. So they're killing the land. So vegetarianism is actually killing the land. So it's, yeah. So I could, again, if you, Dr. Natasha McBride has a video called Vegetarianism, and she goes into depth about that, talking about how commercial farming, commercial vegetarian farming is really raping and pillaging the planet. So it looks like it's actually the reverse. You listed Doritos, Fritos, Cheetos. Yeah. And there's a list. I did look at that in my research, but I'll see if I can find that. If anyone finds it, you can post it here. There's a list of, I think if you Google kids foods that contain glyphosate, because I don't know how to Google and not lose you. But if anyone Googles that, you can get a picture of like all the foods that contain glyphosate. Yeah, wild and forage. Yeah, so that's it, Gabriel. That's exactly it. We need to live kind of a wild lifestyle, right? Because wild animals in nature don't have all the cancers and chronic diseases that we do. Our pets do when we feed them carbohydrates. But if you're a tiger out there in nature, and our digestive system is the same as a tiger, right? We have acid in our stomach to digest meat. We don't have the bacteria to break down plants. So if we're living like a caveman or like a wild animal and eating foods that come directly from the earth, unprocessed foods, and we have intermittent fasting, because if we're in nature and we're caveman, okay, we get the boar, we eat the boar, we don't have refrigeration, so we can't save it for 4 days. We just eat what we can, and then we probably won't eat again. It could be another day or two before we get more food, more fish or whatever. So, we're in a society where our processed foods are being filled with these addictive substances. So we can't get enough. We're continually stuffing. We can't even stop long enough to sleep to allow our bodies to detoxify. So this is what's happening with our society. I mean, diabetes is on the rise, cancer is on the rise. We need to carve out the chemicals. And it's not so much about calories as it is about supplying the right fuel. So our body needs fat as a major fuel. And Dr. Campbell McBride, again, this is a point I wanted to make. So I was more vegetarian based, and then I moved to more paleo, keto, and eventually, for a week, month or maybe a little longer, I did just carnivore. I only ate meat. And Corey Hutter, my friend, sort of started me on that when I was visiting him, because he's a carnivore. But I think for me, I needed to move slowly. And if you're, vegetarian based right now, you need to look at a slow transition. And Dr. Campbell McBride's book is great. She'll talk about bone broths and meat stock, and eating the fat of the meat before you actually eat too much of the animal meat protein. And she has kind of a protocol based on your symptoms and where you are, because again, a smoother transition to a different lifestyle I think is important. If you've been, again, more plant-based, which is what our society has encouraged and introduced to us as a healthy diet, then you might just need time for your body to build up the enzymes and to switch to a more meat-based, carnivorous lifestyle. So I don't know if there's any more questions. If there's no more questions, I'm just going to wish you a happy full moon. Again, it's great. Scorpio means kind of digging out research, getting to the bottom of things, stirring up the earth, and the sun in Taurus, which is the earth and our stability and our livelihood. And so I'm really blessed to be able to kind of share this evening with you. If you have any questions about any of the products, any of the resources that I'm going to post, just give me a text or put a message in here. So how I started, right, was the more fat you consume, the leaner you are. Now you know why that is, right? Because if you're consuming fat, you're satisfying your appetite. If you're consuming fat, you're using it as a fuel. Where if you're using glucose, there's only a few organs, few little things that use glucose, but mostly you need fat. So you're utilizing then the fuel that you use. So you become leaner naturally. Carnivores are sexy and they're also sane. So we know that because we've talked about the sanity part, right? That if you have inflammation in your body, it's going to create inflammation in your brain. And the studies show even schizophrenic symptoms are reduced when you reduce the carbohydrates. And sexy, right? Carnivores are sexy. We talked about that because you get the fat that you need for your sex hormones, also the fat that you need for your nervous system. So carnivores are sane and sexy. And the last, meat is medicine, because the meat has everything. I don't know what they do with meat. The meat has everything you need to heal your body. So we can use plants as cleansers. So if we're trying to cleanse our body, there's a position in place for plants. My friend Corey wouldn't agree with me, but I still feel like there's a place for it. But what some of the studies show, and Dr. Georgia Eddy, E-D-E, she says even when you mix things like, say, she gave an example with oysters. I don't know what this is. It must be the Scorpio moon. Oysters, sexual urges and all this kind of stuff. But if you mix some other food, some plant-based food with oysters, it decreases the amount of zinc that you're getting from the oysters. So some plants you may want to have separate from your meat just because of that effect, that malabsorption effect that it has. So I just want to thank all of you, and just make sure there's no this video be viewed. Okay, thank you. Good. Thank you, Gabriel, for the chia seeds. Okay, I got to tell you this. This is another important thing. So in the morning, I would get up, I would have my shake, I would put chia seeds, hemp seeds, and another seed that I can't remember, flax seeds, ground flax seeds in my shake. So what I've been learning, though, is that the seeds can actually demineralize your body, because the seed needs vitamins and minerals. So the seed will actually take it out of the food for its own kind of purpose. So the seeds can be depleting to your body, and a lot of the seed oils are actually, so Natasha Campbell McBride says, toxic to your system. So I've really changed, because I used to promote the plant-based whole foods diet. I mean, I'm still about no processed foods. I'm still about filtering your water and eating organic. But I do think the meat, the animal proteins, and animal fats in particular are really important for brain health, for healthy body, for reducing inflammation. Good, thank you. So thank you all for being here, for your great questions and adding so many great comments. And I will post some links. I would invite you to reach for the stars, envision and achieve your personal best. And most of all, enjoy the journey. This is Dr. Dina Churchill signing out.